How to Manipulate Without Being Seen as a Manipulator by Jonathan Blackwood, published by Audiobooks HUB. Introduction. We all influence each other, whether we mean to or not, every day. In small conversations and big decisions, there's a subtle dance happening beneath the surface. A pull here, a nudge there. Some people do it naturally, instinctively shaping the thoughts, emotions, and actions of those around them. Others crash through interactions like bulls in a china shop, leaving behind a trail of suspicion and resentment. The truth is, manipulation isn't necessarily a dirty word. It's simply influence with intent. Without it, leaders would struggle to inspire, negotiators would fail to strike deals, and even friendships would sometimes fall apart. The real problem isn't in influencing people. It's in getting caught doing it. When you are seen as a manipulator, people stop trusting you. They become defensive. Every word you say is viewed through a lens of suspicion. You might win a battle, but you lose the war. True skill lies in guiding people's thoughts and decisions without ever making them feel controlled. They must believe it was their idea, their choice, they were all along. This book is not about becoming a puppet master or deceiving people for selfish gain. It's about mastering the subtle art of influence, understanding human nature so deeply that your guidance feels natural, even welcome. It's about aligning your interests with theirs so that when they choose freely and they choose you. Throughout these chapters, I'll share the principles, strategies, and psychological truths that allow you to wield influence without the ugly stain of manipulation. You'll learn how to read people, plan ideas, handle resistance, and walk away with what you want, all while being perceived as trustworthy, likable, and sincere. Some of these techniques may feel powerful, even dangerous. That's because they are. Influence is a double-edged sword. In the wrong hands, it becomes exploitation. In the right hands, it can build incredible relationships, drive positive change, and open doors you never thought possible. By the time you finish this book, you'll understand not just how to influence people, but how to do it in a way that strengthens, rather than weakens, the bonds between you and them. You'll become someone others naturally follow, support, and trust, without ever quite knowing why. There is an invisible current running through every social interaction. Those who can feel it, ride it. Those who can shape it, rule it. Welcome to the art of subtle influence. Chapter 1. The first rule of subtle influence is simple. People must never feel that you are trying to influence them. The moment they sense a hidden agenda, their defenses go up like castle walls. It's not logical, it's instinctive. Deep down, we all hate the idea of being controlled. We value our autonomy more than almost anything else. So, if you want to guide someone's thoughts or decisions, you must always begin by protecting their sense of freedom. This starts with mindset. You can't walk into a conversation thinking, how can I manipulate this person? It puts you in the wrong frame. Instead, think, how can I help them reach the conclusion that also benefits me? It might seem like a small difference, but it changes everything. Your tone, your body language, your choice of words. People pick up on these tiny signals, even if they can't consciously explain it. One of the most powerful tools you have is curiosity. Instead of pushing your ideas, pull theirs. Ask questions that lead them toward the direction you want. For example, instead of saying, you should choose option A, you might ask, what do you like most about option A compared to the others? The magic here is that you're not telling them what to do. You're helping them notice the benefits themselves. When people feel that they've arrived at a decision on their own, they're much more committed to it, and much less likely to resent you later. Another important principle is mirroring, not just in body language, although that's powerful too, but emotionally. If they are cautious, you must be cautious. If they are excited, you must show excitement. Mirroring creates a silent message. We are alike. You can trust me. And trust is everything. Without it, your influence collapses like a house of cards. In conversations, timing matters more than most people realize. You might be bursting with the perfect idea or argument, but if you offer it too soon, before the other person is ready to hear it, it will be rejected. The best manipulators are patient. They wait for moments when the other person is emotionally open, curious, or uncertain. Think of it like planting a seed. If you plant it in frozen ground, it dies. Plant it when the soil is warm and soft, and it grows easily. One mistake amateurs make is trying too hard. They push. They over-explain. They pressure. And in doing so, they reveal themselves. A true master of influence underplays their hand. They leave space for silence. They let the other person talk more. They suggest, but never impose. Their touch is so light that it barely seems like influence at all. Stories are another underestimated weapon. Our brains are wired to absorb information through narrative, not through dry facts or blunt arguments. If you want to slip an idea into someone's mind without resistance, tell a story, a personal story, even better. One that relates to their situation, subtly pointing them toward the action you want, without ever explicitly telling them what to do. It's like offering a map without demanding they follow it. Another key is to manage your energy. People are highly sensitive to emotional tones. If you come across as desperate, needy, or overly eager, you lose credibility. You seem biased. Instead, carry yourself with calm confidence, as if you don't need them to agree with you. You simply believe what you're saying because it's true and valuable. Indifference, when applied correctly, is magnetic. Now, let's talk about the subtle language of suggestion. Words like consider, perhaps, you might find, or one possibility is are golden. They sound soft, harmless, and yet they guide attention exactly where you want it. Compare that to you must, you have to, or you should, which immediately trigger resistance. Tone matters too. Speak with people, not at them. If your voice is full of "listen to me, I know better," people instinctively push back. But if you sound like you're exploring ideas together, shoulder to shoulder, they relax. Relaxation is the doorway to influence. Lastly, understand this. No matter how good you become, you cannot control everyone. Some people are naturally suspicious, stubborn, or have personal reasons that make influence nearly impossible in that moment. Don't force it. True subtlety means knowing when to withdraw, when to leave an idea planted quietly and walk away. Sometimes, the strongest influence happens after you're gone, when the seed you planted finally starts to grow. You are not battling people. You are partnering with their minds, guiding them without breaking their trust, helping them want what you want, or at least not resist it. Master this, and you won't just influence people, they'll thank you for it. Chapter 2. If you want to influence people without them realizing it, you must first master the art of making them feel seen, heard, and understood. It sounds simple. It's not. Most people listen just enough to plan their next sentence. They nod at the right times, smile when expected, but inside, they're waiting for their turn to talk. Real listening, the kind that makes people feel truly understood, is rare. And because it's rare, it's incredibly powerful. When someone feels truly heard, their guard drops, their mind opens. They begin to trust you, even crave your input. This is your golden window for influence, and it starts not with speaking, but with listening. The trick is to listen like a mirror. When they express an idea or a feeling, reflect it back, without judgment or advice. If they say, "I just feel like no one at work takes me seriously," you might respond, "It sounds like you're feeling overlooked, like your contributions aren't being valued." Simple. No fixing, no advice, just reflection. It's strange, but when people hear their feelings mirrored back to them, they feel safer. They feel validated. And in that safety, they naturally become more open to influence. But it doesn't stop with listening. You must also align with them, at least at first. If you want someone to move toward a new idea, you can't start by pushing against their current beliefs. You must stand beside them. Agree where you can, even if it's small. I can see why you'd feel that way. That makes total sense. I think a lot of people would agree with you. These tiny affirmations aren't just politeness. They build psychological bridges. They turn you from an outsider into an insider. And insiders can suggest things that outsiders cannot. There's a technique called yes ladder that flows naturally from this. The idea is simple. Guide the conversation so that the other person says yes several times in a row, even to small, harmless statements. Each yes lowers resistance just a little more. Each yes creates momentum. For example, you value your team's opinion, right? Yes. You want to be seen as someone who makes strong contributions? Yes. And you're looking for ways to be even more impactful? Yes. Once you have that momentum, slipping in your true suggestion feels natural, almost inevitable. Maybe presenting your ideas in a more structured way could help you stand out even more. Notice how different that feels compared to simply saying, you need to organize your thoughts better. One triggers resistance. The other feels like a shared discovery. Another layer to subtle influence is emotional matching. If someone is frustrated, you acknowledge their frustration, not in a fake way, but genuinely. You step into their emotional world. If they're hopeful, you match that hope. If they're anxious, you lower your energy and show calm. People don't just listen with their ears, they listen with their emotions. If you are emotionally out of sync with them, even your best logic will bounce off their walls. If you are emotionally in sync, your words slipping like keys into locks. Of course, matching emotions doesn't mean you stay there forever. If someone is anxious, you meet them in that anxiety, and then slowly guide them toward calm. If someone is angry, you acknowledge the anger, and then gently toward reason. The key is to join their emotional state before trying to lead them anywhere. Another subtle trick. People are much more influenced by what they say than what you say. If you can get them to articulate the conclusion you want, it's 10 times more powerful than you simply stating it. Questions are your best tool here. Open-ended questions. How do you think you could make your ideas land more strongly in meetings? What do you think might make the biggest difference? What's one small change that would help? Notice you're not telling. You're inviting them to think. And once they say it, it's theirs. They own it. Finally, patience cannot be overstated. Subtle influence is not about rushing. It's about creating a space where ideas can grow naturally. It's about laying down a path so gently that the other person doesn't even notice they're walking it. Sometimes you'll plant a seed in one conversation that doesn't bloom until days or weeks later. Sometimes they'll even come back to you, excited about a new idea, the very idea you planted, but now they believe it's theirs. Smile, nod, let them have the credit. Because the best manipulators, the ones nobody sees as manipulators, aren't driven by ego. They don't need the recognition. They're focused on results. At the end of the day, subtle influence isn't about controlling people. It's about guiding them so gently that they arrive at a better place and feel that they got there all on their own. Chapter 3. People think that influence is about speaking, but the real masters know it's about setting the frame. The frame is the invisible lens through which people interpret everything you say. It's a hidden context, the background music that colors the entire conversation. If you control the frame, you control the meaning. And if you control the meaning, you control the outcome without ever looking like you're forcing anything. Imagine you walk into a gallery and see a painting surrounded by a magnificent golden frame. Instantly, The painting feels valuable, important, even if the painting itself is average. Now imagine the same painting taped to a dirty wall without a frame. Suddenly, it feels cheap, forgettable. Same painting, different frame, different reaction. Conversations work the same way. If you start a negotiation by saying, "Let's find a way that works well for both of us," you set a cooperative frame. The other person now feels that you're allies, not enemies. But if you start by saying, "I need you to come down on your price," you set an adversarial frame. Now it's a battle. Subtle manipulators always frame first. They don't argue facts. They argue context. A classic way to frame is through persuasion, a concept made famous by psychologist Robert Cialdini. Persuasion means shaping the atmosphere before you even make your request. For example, if you're about to ask your boss for more responsibility, you might casually, ahead of time, highlight moments when you've handled challenges well. Not bragging, just mentioning it in passing, planting the idea that you're capable. Then, when you ask for more responsibility, it feels obvious, natural, inevitable. Another powerful framing tool is contrast. Humans don't judge things in isolation. We judge by comparison. If you offer someone a $100 product first, and then a $50 one, the $50 seems cheap. But if you offer the $50 product first, and then $100, the $100 seems expensive. Same numbers, different frame, different decision. So if you're proposing an idea that might seem ambitious, first describe an even bigger, crazier idea. Then your real idea will seem moderate and reasonable by comparison. Framing also includes priming emotions. If you want someone to be open and optimistic, start by reminding them of times when things went well. If you want them to take your warning seriously, start by telling a story about a situation where ignoring warning signs led to disaster. People's minds are like tuning forks. Whatever emotional note you strike first sets the tone for what follows. Here's a secret. If you don't set the frame, someone else will. And once a frame is set, it's very hard to break. It becomes a truth that everything else must fit into. That's why experienced influencers prepare the frame before they prepare their words. They think, what mood do I want them in? What assumptions do I want them making? What comparisons will make my idea look better? Then, and only then, do they start speaking. Another thing about frames, they're often invisible because they align with the stories people already tell themselves. If someone believes they're a smart, independent thinker, you don't frame your suggestion as, "Here's what you should do." You frame it as, "Here's an idea a lot of really sharp people are exploring. You might find it interesting." Now, agreeing with you feels like affirming their self-image, not submitting to you. If someone sees themselves as generous, and you want them to help, you frame your request as an opportunity for them to live up to that value. I know how much you care about making a difference. That's why I thought of you first. Framing is about positioning. You're not changing the object. You're changing the angle people view it from. Sometimes, the best frame is simply urgency. If you want someone to act quickly, frame the situation as time-sensitive. This opportunity is only open for a short time. Or, more subtly, I wanted to bring this to you first before others hear about it. The frame creates the feeling that not acting soon would be a loss. Loss aversion. The human tendency to fear losing more than we love winning. Does the rest. But remember, framing must be gentle. If you hammer it too hard, people notice and resist. A good frame feels like something they stumbled upon themselves. Think of it this way. You're not shoving people through a door. You're simply opening it, shining a light through it, and letting their curiosity do the rest. In the end, the art of framing is the art of making your desired path feel like the obvious, natural, attractive one, without ever making it look like you pushed them there. Done right, you'll influence their choices, Guide their perceptions, shape their actions, and they'll thank you for the journey. Chapter 4. Subtle manipulation isn't just about influencing people's thinking. It's about guiding their feelings. Emotions are the engines that drive decisions. Logic just steers a little bit. If you can quietly nudge how someone feels, you can guide where they'll go, and they won't even realize you were behind the wheel. One of the most powerful emotional levers is certainty. People crave certainty. They want to feel like they know what's happening, that the ground under their feet is stable. So when you project quiet confidence, when you speak as if your version of reality is simply how things are, people naturally lean toward believing you. Notice, not loud arrogance, quiet certainty. It's the calm tone of someone who knows without needing to prove it. It's saying, this approach tends to work best, instead of, I think this might work. It's stating, most people find this extremely helpful, instead of, maybe you could try this. When you sound unsure, people second guess you. When you sound certain, people second guess themselves. Another key emotion you can subtly guide is safety. If people feel safe with you, emotionally safe, they are more open to your influence. This means avoiding sharp criticism, even when you see mistakes. It means rewarding vulnerability with support, not judgment. For example, if someone confesses they're overwhelmed at work, you don't respond with, well, you need to manage your time better. You respond with, it's completely understandable to feel that way with everything you're handling. Let's look at it together. You make them feel safe first. Then, and only then, can you gently introduce change. Another emotional lever is belonging. Humans are tribal creatures. We want to be part of something, a group, a cause, a mission. If you frame your ideas as part of an in-group movement, something that smart, successful, admirable people are already doing, people will want to join in. Instead of saying, you should exercise more, you might say, a lot of the top performers I know are prioritizing fitness because they see how much it boosts their energy and focus. Now, it's not about you pushing them. It's about them aligning with a group they admire. You can also subtly trigger aspiration, the feeling that they are growing, rising, becoming their best self. People are drawn to anything that feels like a step forward toward the person they want to be. You don't tell them where they are failing. You tell them, you're already doing so much right, and I can see you're just a tiny shift away from leveling up even further. It's important here to genuinely believe it. Fake flattery smells bad a mile away, but sincere encouragement, especially when it points to their potential, is magnetic. Another subtle emotion to work with is curiosity. Instead of trying to push your ideas on people, make them want to know more. Tease the idea. Hint at something bigger. For example, there's actually a way to handle that situation that almost always gets better results. It's not what most people expect. That little hint invites them to lean in, to ask. And when they ask, they are emotionally pulling the information from you, which means they're much more ready to accept it. Curiosity is powerful because it flips the dynamic. They are chasing the idea, not running from it. Of course, emotions can backfire if mishandled. Push too hard on fear and people freeze. Push too hard on belonging and people feel manipulated. The key is to whisper emotions, not shout them. Think of it like adding seasoning to a dish. A pinch brings a flavor to life. A handful ruins a meal. Subtle manipulators know. You don't need to overwhelm people with feelings. You just need to lightly color their emotional lens. Enough so that when they look at your idea, it already feels right. At the end of the day, people don't remember every word you said. They remember how you made them feel. If you can make them feel safe, certain, curious, and inspired, without ever making them feel pressured, they will walk away thinking it was their own brilliant idea to move forward. And that's exactly what you want. Chapter 5. There's a saying among master influencers, Whoever asks the questions controls the conversation. And it's true, questions are like steering wheels. Whoever holds the wheel decides where the conversation goes. And yet, questions don't feel like control. They feel like curiosity. That's why they're so powerful. When you make statements, you risk resistance. People might argue, push back, defend themselves. But when you ask questions, you bypass their defenses. Questions slip under the radar and make people think along the lines you want without realizing it. Let's say you want someone to reconsider a stubborn belief. If you say, "You're wrong about that," they'll get defensive. But if you ask, "How did you come to that conclusion?" suddenly they're the one doing the work, re-examining their own ideas. Questions create mental movement. Statements create walls. Smart manipulators don't lecture. They guide gently, invisibly, by asking the right questions at the right time. There are several types of questions that are especially useful when you want to influence without seeming to. First, leading questions. Leading questions subtly point toward the answer you want without ever telling someone what to think. For example, how would it feel to have this solved by the end of the week? Instead of arguing that they should act fast, you invite them to imagine a positive outcome. And once they imagine it, they naturally want it. Second, framing questions. Framing questions limit the options to ones you're comfortable with, making the outcome almost inevitable. Instead of asking, "Do you want to move forward?" you ask, "Would you prefer to start on Monday or Wednesday?" Now the question isn't whether they'll move forward, it's when. Third, comparison questions. When people are stuck, it helps to compare. Which approach feels like it would get you closer to your goal? A or B? Instead of fighting resistance directly, you're shifting the focus to choice and ownership. Another powerful trick is using questions to install emotions. For example, what would success feel like for you? Or, imagine if this challenge disappeared. What would you do next? These kind of questions make people emotionally experience the future you're guiding them toward. And emotions, once again, drive decisions. The real beauty of questions is that they make people think it's all their idea. They're the ones talking. They're the ones reasoning it out. You're just asking, gently, curiously, supportively. Of course, tone matters. If your questions sound like an interrogation, sharp, aggressive, the magic is broken. Questions must feel light, open, almost playful. Think of the way a good therapist asks questions. Softly, gently, patiently, drawing people out, not boxing them in. Another secret. The best influencers don't rush to fill the silence after asking a question. They wait. They let the silence work. Because here's the thing. When someone starts answering your question, they're entering a frame you've created. And the longer they stay there, thinking, feeling, exploring, the deeper that frame takes root in their mind. Silence is not your enemy. Silence is your partner. Also, don't ask too many questions at once. People hate feeling grilled. One good, well-placed question can do more than 10 rapid-fire ones. Timing matters, too. The best questions often come after you build some emotional safety, when the person already feels you're on their side. If you jump into probing too soon, people feel exposed and start guarding themselves. Think of yourself as a dance partner. You don't yank, you invite. Finally, be genuinely curious. Even though you're guiding, you must really listen to their answers, because inside their words are often the clues you'll use for your next gentle move. Real curiosity creates trust, and trust makes people lower their walls even more. At its core, using questions is about guiding discovery. You're not giving them answers. You're lighting little lamps along a path and letting them choose to walk it. And when they reach the destination you had in mind, they feel victorious, not manipulated. They feel smart, capable, autonomous. and they associate those good feelings with you, which is exactly what you want. Chapter 6. One of the trickiest balances in subtle influence is strength without aggression. If you come across as weak, people ignore you. If you come across as aggressive, people resist you. The sweet spot is quiet strength, the kind that people feel without you ever having to raise your voice. Quiet strength starts with presence. When you walk into a room or join a conversation, the way you carry yourself matters before you even say a word. It's in your posture, relaxed but upright. It's in your eyes, steady, unhurried. It's in your voice, calm, low, and measured. You don't need to talk a lot. In fact, the less you say, the more powerful you seem. When you speak only when you have something worth saying, people lean in to listen. Quiet strength also shows up in how you react, or rather, how you don't react. When someone criticizes you, you don't flinch. When someone challenges you, you don't rush to defend yourself. You stay grounded. You listen. You choose your words carefully. And that calmness sends a very loud message. I am not threatened. I am in control. Aggression is reactive. Strength is responsive. One subtle trick is what I call the slow blink. When you're under pressure, a heated conversation, a stressful moment, slow down your blinking, your breathing, your gestures. It signals to others and to your own nervous system that you are composed. It's almost unsettling to people who expect you to react wildly. Instead, they find themselves adjusting their energy down to meet yours. Another part of quiet strength is boundaries. You don't have to bark at people to have strong boundaries. You simply state them clearly and calmly, and then hold them. For example, I'm happy to discuss this, but not if it turns into shouting. Simple, clear, calm, and if the shouting starts, you calmly exit. No dramatics, just action. People learn very quickly that you mean what you say, without you ever needing to escalate. Another important tool is owning your no. Weak influencers over-explain when they say no. Strong ones simply say it, politely, without guilt, without writing an essay to justify it. No, I'm not available then. Or, no, I'm not comfortable with that. No drama, no apologies. People respect what you respect. If you respect your own time, energy, and values, others will too, even if they don't like it at first. Also, strong people don't rush decisions. If someone pushes you to answer immediately, you simply say, I'll need a moment to think about that. Or, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Rushing is a sign of insecurity. Taking your time signals power. Here's a simple truth. Calm people win, because calmness shows certainty, and certainty draws people in. Sometimes, the best move is no move at all. When someone expects you to fight, and you stay composed, you subtly dominate the situation without ever lifting a finger. There's a story about a master negotiator who was offered a ridiculous deal. Instead of arguing, he just smiled slightly and said nothing. The other party got uncomfortable. They started offering better terms. He still said nothing. They kept improving the deal, talking themselves into a better offer, all because of one thing. His silence said, "You know this isn't good enough. I don't need to argue. You'll realize it yourself." That's quiet strength. It's magnetic. It's unsettling. It's incredibly effective. And best of all, it doesn't make you look like a manipulator. It makes you look like a leader. Someone people want to follow, not someone they feel pushed by. At the end of the day, quiet strength isn't about domination. It's about being so solid in yourself that other people feel it and naturally adjust around it. You don't have to fight for space. You become the space. And that's real influence. Chapter 7. One of the most elegant forms of manipulation is making people think it was their idea all along. When someone believes they came up with a solution themselves, they'll defend it, protect it, and follow through without resistance. And the beauty is, you never had to push. You just planted the seed and let it grow. The trick is suggesting without suggesting. It starts with seeding. You casually drop ideas into conversation without directly proposing them. Not in a way that says, here's what I want you to do, but more like, some people in similar situations have found X really helpful. Or, I've seen others tackle this by doing Y, and it worked surprisingly well for them. Notice the distance. You're not telling them what to do. You're telling a story. You're offering information. You're making it available and letting them reach for it. Another way to plant ideas is through hypotheticals. Instead of saying, you should do this, you say, imagine if you tried X, what do you think would happen? Now they're playing with the idea inside their own mind. They're exploring it voluntarily. And if they like it, they'll often own it as if it came from them. Sometimes you can be even subtler by reflecting their own desires back to them. Listen carefully to what they say they want, even if they say it casually or in passing, and then mirror it later. For example, if someone says, I wish I had more time for my own projects, you might, a few minutes later, say, I keep thinking how much stronger your brand would be if you had a little more space for your personal work. Now, the idea of creating space is not your idea. It's theirs. You're just helping it blossom. Timing matters too. You don't want to push ideas too early when people are still feeling defensive. You wait. You listen. You drop little hints like breadcrumbs. You let them think they're the one leading the way. Another powerful tool is building momentum. Instead of asking for the full commitment immediately, you get them to agree to a small piece first. For example, instead of saying, will you join this big project? You say, would you be willing to brainstorm a few ideas with me sometime this week? Once they agree to the small step, it's easier for them to agree to the bigger ones later. Psychologists call this the foot in the door technique. People want to stay consistent with their previous behavior. If they agreed once, they're much more likely to agree again. But again, it must feel natural, not forced, not strategic. They must feel like they are in charge the whole time. Sometimes, one of the best ways to make someone suggest what you want is to leave a deliberate gap. If you outline a situation but stop just short of proposing a solution, the other person often feels compelled to fill the gap with the solution you were hoping for. Example, you say, we're so close to meeting the deadline. If only there were a way to get a little extra help on the graphics. And you wait. If you framed it well, the other person might jump in. Maybe I can help with that. You smile, agree enthusiastically, and now they feel it's their idea to step up. This is the R strategic incompleteness. You don't present a full solution. You leave room for them to step into the space. It's subtle, it's elegant, and it works. One last tip. When people finally suggest the idea you wanted, don't steal the credit. Don't say, exactly, that's what I was thinking. Instead, act a little surprised and pleased. That's a brilliant idea. Or, I love that. Let's explore it. Let them fully own it. Because once they own it, they'll protect it fiercely. They'll feel invested. And in the end, that's real influence. Not because you forced them, not because you argued better, but because you made them believe it was their choice. And nothing feels better than believing you're in control. Manipulation? Maybe, but it's the kind that feels good for everyone involved. And that's the magic you're learning to master. Chapter 8. If you want to influence people without looking like a manipulator, you must understand emotions, not just recognize them, work with them, speak to them, move through them, naturally and authentically. Because at the end of the day, people don't make decisions based on logic. They decide based on how they feel, and then they justify it with logic afterward. This is where emotional triggers come into play, but not the loud, obvious ones, not anger, panic, guilt, the subtler ones. Trust, belonging, curiosity, hope. These emotions can be touched so gently that the person never feels pressured. They just feel naturally drawn toward a decision. The first and maybe most powerful trigger is trust. If people trust you, you don't need to push. They want to listen to you. They want to believe you. Building trust isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent, doing what you say you'll do, showing up the way people expect, being transparent when things go wrong instead of hiding. A simple way to trigger trust is through small vulnerabilities. When you share something genuine, a mistake you made, a small fear, a lesson you learned the hard way, it humanizes you, and strangely, it makes people see you as stronger, not weaker. Another key emotional trigger is belonging. Humans are tribal creatures. We want to feel connected, included, part of something. If you position your ideas in a way that makes people feel like joining you means joining something bigger than themselves, they will move toward you without hesitation. Instead of saying, "Here's what I need you to do," you say, "Here's what we can create together." Tiny shift, massive impact. You're no longer pulling them. You're inviting them into something exciting. Curiosity is another underrated trigger. When you present just enough information to spark interest, but not enough to fully explain, people lean in. They want to know more. For example, instead of explaining everything about a project, you might say, "There's a twist to this plan that makes it completely different from anything we've done before." Pause. Let them ask, "What's the twist?" Now they are asking you for more information. Curiosity pulls them forward naturally. Finally, hope is one of the most powerful emotional triggers. People want to believe that things can get better, that they can grow, improve, succeed. If your message offers genuine hope, not empty hype, but real, believable hope, people will follow you. You don't promise miracles. You paint a future they can see themselves stepping into. You say things like, "It won't be easy, but if we stick with it, we're going to create something we'll be proud of." Or, "You're closer to this goal than you think." Honest hope is magnetic. Now, here's the key to using emotional triggers without looking like you're manipulating. You have to believe it yourself. You can't fake trustworthiness. You can't fake belonging. You can't fake curiosity or hope. If you don't feel it inside you, others will sense it, even if they can't explain why. Your emotions are contagious. If you genuinely feel excited, calm, hopeful, connected, it will radiate from you without you having to perform anything. This is why the best influencers aren't the ones who act influential. They simply are. They embody the emotions they want others to feel. If you want others to trust you, trust yourself first. If you want others to feel belonging, make space for them in your heart first. If you want others to be curious, stay curious yourself. If you want others to feel hope, find real hope in what you're offering. People aren't fooled by techniques for long, but they are drawn to authenticity like moths to light. So use emotional triggers, yes, but don't weaponize them. Live them. When you do, you won't need to manipulate anyone. You'll simply move them naturally, invisibly, powerfully. And that's the real game. Chapter 9. One of the most powerful skills in subtle manipulation is the ability to stay invisible while still controlling the situation. The best manipulators don't make things happen by forcing them. They make things happen by being absent. This might sound contradictory, but it's a principle that every successful influencer understands. To lead, you don't always need to be in the front. Sometimes, the most effective position is in the background, quietly pulling the strings, without anyone ever realizing it. The first step is learning how to guide without being noticed. It's about creating the illusion of choice. You give people options, but you make sure that the ones you want them to pick are the ones that are most visible or easiest to consider. For example, if you want someone to take on a specific task, don't tell them directly. Instead, present them with several possible options, making one of them feel like the natural choice. You know, I've seen a lot of people take this route recently, and they've had some really positive results. What do you think? You presented a solution, but it still feels like their decision. Indirect influence is often much stronger than direct orders. People don't resist what they think is their own idea, even if it's your idea all along. A critical part of staying invisible is knowing when to pull back. The more you push, the more you reveal yourself as an active participant. And once people sense you're involved, they may start questioning your motives. But when you let things flow naturally, when you let others think they are in control, you create the perfect environment for quiet influence. A great technique for remaining invisible is what I call the passive leader approach. When you're in a group, avoid dominating the conversation. Don't try to have the loudest voice. Instead, let others speak. Give them space to express their ideas, even if they're not fully formed. Then, guide them back to your goal with small, almost imperceptible shifts. For example, let someone suggest a direction, then reinforce it by adding just a tiny piece of information that nudges them toward your preferred outcome. Instead of saying, "We should do X," you might say, "That's a good idea." One thing I've seen work well in situations like this is Y. What do you think? They'll be grateful for your contribution, but they'll still think the idea is their own. When you leave from behind, you create trust without appearing controlling. It's like setting up a domino effect. You arrange the pieces just so, and then you let them fall naturally one after the other. Another tool for remaining unseen is creating conditions for others to act. Instead of directly telling someone what to do, help them see the problem in a way that makes them want to solve it. For example, instead of saying, "Please finish this report by Friday," you might say, "I've noticed that the deadline for this report is approaching quickly. How do you feel about handling it by Friday?" Now, they're the ones who are internally driven to act. Staying invisible also means letting people feel that they've had a part in the decision-making process. When someone feels they've had control over a decision, they feel more ownership and responsibility toward it. This is why, when you guide people toward conclusion, it's important to let them believe they've arrived at it themselves. The key to this is language. Instead of saying, "I want you to do this," say, "What do you think about this?" Or, "I'm curious how you would approach this situation." Even if you have a clear solution in mind, you create space for others to contribute and feel empowered. Finally, staying invisible means being mindful of timing. Don't rush in with advice or solution too soon. Let things develop at their own pace, and intervene only when necessary. When you wait for the right moment, you become a catalyst for change without ever forcing it. It's like being the quiet conductor of a symphony. You don't play the instruments, but you direct the music. And when the performance is over, no one remembers the conductor. They only remember the music. That's how you want to work. Not by being the loudest voice in the room, but by subtly guiding the direction of the conversation, the decisions, the outcomes, all while staying out of the spotlight. Invisibility doesn't mean passivity. It means power and restraint. It means creating an environment where others move naturally toward the outcome you desire, without ever realizing you're the one orchestrating it. In the end, the most powerful manipulator is the one no one notices, the one whose influence is so seamless that people believe it was their own idea all along. And that is where real power lies, in being so in tune with the flow of things that you can guide them without anyone even seeing your hand. Chapter 10. So here we are at the end of this journey together. You've learned the subtle art of manipulation, not as a tool of coercion, but as a way to move people gently, effectively, and without them even realizing they've been moved. We started by exploring how influence is often invisible. True manipulators don't announce their presence. They work from the shadows, guiding others, making them believe they're in control, all while steering them toward the desired outcome. We spoke about creating the illusion of choice. By providing options and making one feel more natural than the others, you allow people to think they're deciding freely, while in reality, you've already set the path. Subtlety was a constant theme. If you push too hard, people will resist. If you push too lightly, they might not even notice. The key is to be present enough to guide, but invisible enough to let others think they're leading. You've learned to plant ideas by seeding them in conversation, letting them grow in the other person's mind until they feel like they're making the choice themselves. We explored passive leadership, where you lead from behind, letting others take the reins while you stay in the background, quietly making things happen. The emotional triggers we covered, trust, belonging, curiosity, and hope, are the fuel that powers this subtle influence. When you connect with people's emotions, you bypass their defenses, and they open up to your ideas without even realizing they've been influenced. And then there's the art of remaining invisible, being the quiet architect of change, staying out of the spotlight, and letting others believe they're the ones driving the decisions. But here's the truth. At the heart of everything we've discussed lies one crucial idea: authenticity. The best manipulators aren't the ones who are sneaky, devious, or insincere. They're the ones who have mastered the art of being genuine while subtly influencing others. They connect emotionally, speak from a place of truth, and align their goals with the interests of those they are guiding. It's not about control for the sake of control. It's about collaboration, guiding people to realize their own desires and goals while ensuring your own are met. 2. You'll notice that manipulation, in its most effective form, is mutual. The best manipulators don't harm others. They create win-win situations where everyone feels good about the outcome, even if they didn't know they were being guided to it. In the end, manipulation is not about trickery or dishonesty. It's about understanding human behavior, tapping into emotions, and knowing how to influence outcomes in ways that feel natural and harmonious. As you move forward, remember, the power of subtle influence lies in your ability to be invisible when necessary, present when needed, and genuine above all. The more you align with this truth, the more people will respect you, trust you, and follow your lead willingly. Now you know the tools, the tricks, and the tactics. But remember, the best manipulators are the ones who influence without ever making it obvious. The power is in your hands, but it's the power you wield with grace and integrity that will ultimately define your success.